Hey mama, if you're listening to this, you might be carrying a secret that feels too heavy to speak out loud. You look like you got it all together, you serve at church, maybe you even lead a Bible study. You smile when you drop off the kids, but no one sees the other side of you, the one that comes out behind closed doors. At home, you are a completely different person. You yell, you explode, you scream at your kids, sometimes in their face. You tell them to shut up. You grab them too harshly. You throw things across the room. You smack them in anger, twist their ears, spank them in rage, and immediately after, you are hit with a tidal wave of shame. You cry alone in your room and you whisper, "God, what is wrong with me?" You feel scared and disgusted by your own reactions. You're terrified that someone might find out. You wonder if your kids would be better off without you. You feel unworthy, broken, and too far gone to be redeemed. You try to fix this on your own. You listen to podcasts, parenting books, download freebies, but nothing changes. You keep falling back into the same patterns, and it feels like you are stuck in a cycle that you can't break. You don't trust yourself anymore, and if you're honest, you are afraid of who you've become. But here's the truth, Mama. You are not beyond hope. You're not alone, and with God's help and the right support, you can change. I'm Elizabeth, a mom of 4 and an anger management coach for Christian moms. And inside my Calm Christian Mom coaching program, I guide women just like you through a powerful transformation. This isn't shallow behavior management. We go deep. We address your triggers, your stress, your mindset, your nervous system, and the spiritual root behind your patterns. We invite God into every layer and walk hand in hand towards healing. In just 12 weeks, you can become a completely different mom, unrecognizable. One who leads with patience, not panic. One whose children feel emotionally safe around her. You don't have to keep living like this. Your family is worth healing, and so are you. 2 of my new clients are going through a grieving season right now, and so I thought it would be a really great topic to cover on this week's podcast episode. How do you process grieving emotions as a Christian? And as a Christian mom who is busy and has a lot on her plate, how do you create time to process and release those emotions? If you're listening today, you're probably in a season of some loss, and I want to say that I see you and God sees you. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." Matthew 5:4 says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." Grieving is not just about death. It can be a loss of a marriage, job, friendship, a pet, a baby, or health. There's multiple things that grieving encompasses, and it's anything that is really important to you that you lost, and you need to process emotions. Maybe, for example, you are grieving a marriage, what you thought your marriage was going to be, and facing the reality of what it is. Maybe you have a spouse that has mental health issues that came out, and now you're grieving that marriage, what you envisioned in your mind, what it was going to be. So let's normalize grieving, because grieving is a normal human emotion. At some point in their life, you're going to face the season of grief. Grief, it's a process. It's not just a moment, oh, we just go through it really quickly. It's a whole process. And everyone grieves differently. Here's the thing about grieving. We cannot put a timeline on it and be like, you know what? I have 2 days to grieve that. That's not how grieving works. Everybody has different capacity and different lengths, how much it takes time for them to grieve a loss. And certain things will take longer for us to grieve than others. Emotions in grief are often intense, like the sadness, the anger, the overwhelm, And even rage. Yes, that is part of the grieving cycle, experiencing anger. That does not make you a bad mom or a wife or a friend. It means that you are a human. And it is important to learn how to process and release emotions in a healthy way so then you're not taking it out on your family members. I want you to give yourself grace if you're going through a grieving season. And that is because you are living in the emotional part of your brain, which makes you easily overwhelmed and triggered. And if you've been here around for a minute, you know that I talk about the three different parts of our brain. We have the thinking part of our brain that is logical, problem solving. We can learn new skills. We can regulate ourselves easily. This is right behind your forehead. It's like where your forehead is, that is that part of the brain. When you have stressors build up, when you have overwhelming, hard things that are happening, and you will shift from the thinking part of the brain to the emotional part of the brain that is like right in the center of your brain. And that part of the brain is you feel more triggered, you feel more emotional, you feel easily more overwhelmed. And if the stress keeps building up and you don't do anything to help yourself feel safe and process and release emotions in a healthy way, you're going to hit the survival part of the brain. And the survival part of the brain is in your brainstem. And in your brainstem, that is when you hit rage. When you hit the 10 out of 10, you feel completely out of control. You're saying and doing hurtful things. When you are in the emotional part of the brain, you are noticing it in attitude, in your tone. Your voice is a little bit more intense. But when you are in the survival part of the brain, it feels like a train that's going 1,000 miles an hour and you cannot stop. You know what you're doing is wrong, it's destructive and damaging, and you cannot stop yourself. That's when you're in that survival part of the brain. So it's important to catch yourself when you are in the emotional part of the brain, when you're getting emotional, and be like, okay, I'm getting emotional right now. I'm getting intense. My attitude is changing. I need to do what is going to help me feel better. And what you actually need to do is shift back to your thinking part of the brain. And we'll talk about what you can do to do that. But you got to help your brain feel safe. So then it's going to help you shift back to your thinking part of the brain, which is going to help you stay regulated and more calm and grounded. Okay, so before we go deeper into this podcast episode, I want to share with you a couple seasons in my life where I faced grief that was very hard and difficult and challenging. And I needed to create the space in my days and the margin to process and release emotions in a healthy way. So then I wouldn't take it out on my family. So my biggest first season of grief was a really dark season. I don't talk about it much, but it was a hard season in our marriage. And this was about 7 years ago. It was very difficult and challenging. And I fell into depression. I experienced a lot of overwhelm. I could not take anything extra. Like I was barely functioning. Maybe you've been in a season like that where you are not able to support anybody. You're barely getting by. You are at a place where you're like, I cannot give one more thing. Doing a load of laundry and making my kids' food for the day felt so overwhelming. I could barely function. That was the season, honestly, that I was the closest to the Lord. I lean on God so much. It's like, how you sometimes open the Bible and like you read and you feel like you don't get a ton out of it. And then other times you're like, Lord, I need you. Like, speak to me today. I leaned on the Lord a lot. I listened to worship music a lot. I actually ended up going to therapy twice a week for a short season. I had mentors. I had close friends that I surrounded myself with. I had family. I had a small group that I attended on a regular basis that was a support group. I had practical help. Like I literally had friends that came and cleaned my house during that season of depression. I had meals that were dropped off to me because I was like not functioning at my best at all. Like my mother-in-law would send some food with me when, we would go to their house and come home. My mom sent food with me. And she already did that on a regular basis, but there was some extra and some friends that also brought some meals. And then at that season, when I was hitting depression and also was grieving a season in my marriage, I also I had a membership at Lifetime Fitness in Minnesota, and Lifetime Fitness was about 10 minutes away. It's not like a fancy gym. It's a fancy gym if you've ever been to Lifetime Fitness. And they had childcare. At that time, this was pre-COVID, it was $12 a month per kid to be able to have 2.5 hours of childcare per day. It was like the best deal. And it was summertime. And so I would take all three of my boys there, and I would go there for 2.5 hours and put them in childcare and have them be in childcare. And I would go to the coffee shop. I would journal. I even went to the tennis courts. They had like a tennis court section, and they had like a section over there that above tennis courts that was like tables and some couches, and there's barely any people over there. Sometimes I would literally go there and take a nap. Like legit, that is what I needed in that season. Sometimes I would go to the sauna. Sometimes I go sit by the pool. I didn't even work out that much. I moved my body a little bit, but not a ton. That's not what I needed in that season. But that was like one of my hard seasons in life. And then there was another one where I will link to that episode below, but I experienced the miscarriage in 2020 of August, and it was a miscarriage at 16 weeks, which it's harder. I would say it's a little bit harder than the first trimester. Not to minimize the first trimester, I would think it's a little bit harder in the sense that you get more attached to the baby. You know, the baby's bigger, you've been pregnant for longer, you've went through like the nauseous stage. And so you feel a little bit more attached to the baby the longer you're pregnant. Though, for sure, first trimester can be also very, very heartbreaking and is heartbreaking and is hard. And so when I was experiencing the loss, and I will link the episode that went into detail about the miscarriage in my story, because I think that if you've ever been through miscarriage, I think you will feel very seen when you listen to that podcast episode. But because I've been through a grieving season before, I knew what I needed to support myself to go through this season, okay? And I surrounded myself with support immediately. One of the things that I did is I messaged close people in my life that I knew cared about me and that would show up for me. And I messaged them and said, please pray for me. I just had a miscarriage at 16 weeks. Because, I mean, by 16 weeks, people know you're pregnant. You know, especially I'm a petite person. Like, you can tell, right? Like, I mean, there's no hiding, especially when it was my fourth pregnancy at that time. And so I messaged people and I asked people to pray for me. I reached out for support. When people asked me, like, how can I support you? I said, you can pray for me. You can bring me a meal. That would be really helpful, because the last thing I want to do is cook for my family, okay, when I'm grieving, okay, or help with the kids, okay? And this is how I process my emotions during that season. And I will mention, like, we'll go more into depth about it. I was processing through journaling. I did some like one of those like coloring. Coloring was very calming and peaceful to me. I listened to music. I was talking to my husband and friends about what happened and processing that and sharing what happened. I also was reading some books of some other stories of miscarriage that helped me feel more seen, that I wasn't the only one going through this. Okay. The thing is that I knew what I needed to do to support myself, because I went through a hard season before that, and I knew what I needed to support myself to grieve through this time. I needed space, and I needed permission to say no to anything extra. I was just surviving, and that's what I needed in that season. Okay. So let's talk about what are some practical ways to grieve emotions when you're going through something hard. Let's say you are going through a miscarriage. Let's say you're going through divorce. Let's say you're caring for a sick parent and things just feel really hard and intense. And I know that maybe you won't be able to apply all of these, but see which ones you can apply and implement in your life. So then you are processing and releasing those emotions without taking them out on your family. Here's the thing. If you keep stuffing them, those big feelings, they will eventually get to the point where you're just stuffing it down, and it's going to get to your breaking point, and then you unleash it on your family in hurtful and destructive ways. All right. So Let's talk about how to process the emotions in a healthy way so then you're not taking it out in damaging ways on your family. First of all, talking about it. When you're going through a grieving season, it's actually very important to talk about it, like verbally talk about it. That is one of the ways that you process the emotions of what you feel and why you feel that. You can do that by praying to the Lord. That's talking, okay? You can talk with a trusted friend, a mentor, somebody in a support group, a therapist. Those are all ways to process those grieving emotions verbally by talking about it. The other way that you can process hard and difficult emotions is by journaling. This is one of my favorite ways. I do both. Okay, I did all of these when I was processing, but journaling is one of them. Writing a letter to that person that hurt you. Let's say you had a friendship that fell apart that meant a lot to you. Writing a letter to that person, you don't give it to them, but you write a letter to how that person, how you miss them, how that relationship was important to you, how you feel hurt about how things ended, that there was no closure. Maybe you write a letter to a parent or a sibling where you have like a broken relationship or something big happened. Like, for example, as I'm recording this, Charlie Kirk was assassinated this month in September. And so let's say his wife, she has a lot of grieving to do. But one of the ways that she could grieve is to write letters to her husband, how she misses him, how she wishes he was here for her kids, what a great dad he was, like writing letters to him. So you're pouring out your emotions on paper and you let your soul breathe. Instead of stuffing it and suppressing it, you're putting it all on paper in a safe way. And so writing a letter to that person, or I even had a client once that she lost a sibling in a car accident when she was little. Writing a letter to that sibling, writing a letter to your past self who was like grieving that loss. Like what you wish somebody would have told you in that season, how you wish your parents showed up for you in that season, because her parents were grieving and she was grieving. So that was really, really hard. Okay, so journaling. So talking about it and journaling. The third one is crying. Allow the tears to flow. It's part of releasing emotions. You gotta cry. And I know some of us who listen to this, they're like, I cry easily. Like, I personally cry really easily. I get really emotional. And some of my clients have a really hard time crying because they've been taught to keep it together, hold it in, suppress it. You're not supposed to cry. As they were growing up, they were taught to suppress. Like crying is a weakness. And so they've learned that I need to hold it in. Crying is a healthy way to release emotions. Like David in the Bible cried. He was so emotional. Look at his Psalms. Like he poured out all his emotions on paper, and he was a man. Okay? Processing emotion, releasing them is really important. Crying is a really safe way to do it. Have a really, really good cry. And then if you can sob and cry and have somebody, a loved one, hold you, like a husband that he can hold you while you're crying and just hug you, just hold you, that you can cry in their chest, even better. That, like a safe person that can hold you and comfort you. Okay. Moving your body is number 4. Going on walks, gentle exercises, stretching. Grief lives in your body. Have you ever heard of the book, The Body Keeps the Score? So if you're going through hard things in your life, your body keeps the score. And so grieving will stay inside your body unless you move it out. And emotions move through motion. One of the ways that emotions move out of your body is through motion. Okay. So for me, I personally love to be on walks. Love going on walks. Like one of my favorite. Helps to live in Florida. Summers are super humid, but this time of the year through the winter, like it's amazing. I love going on walks and I like stretching. I really like stretching. Find a YouTube page. Mandy Morrison is my favorite. And if I don't forget, I'll link it in the show notes. But I love her stretching videos and super calming, super peaceful, taking deep breaths. You're moving your body. The next one is listening to music, worship music, instrumental music, something that will help you soothe and help your emotions flow. Sometimes, have you ever heard of this phrase? When we feel sad, we listen to the lyrics. When we feel happy, we listen to the melody. And sometimes there's melody that is, slow and soothing and calming. And sometimes for me, when I've been through really, really hard, challenging seasons, listening to music has been so healing. There's that song that I really like, I Surrender All. And even that song, when the enemy means, Michael W. Smith, when the enemy means for evil, you turn it for our good and for your glory. Listening to songs like that is so healing for me when I'm going through something hard and difficult. So listening to music, hearing other people's stories, okay? You're not alone. Even though you feel lonely, like you're by yourself going through this, you are not alone. There has been somebody who has went through the same thing that you went through, super similar, that walked this road before. So listening to other people's stories, you can either, let's say you are grieving a miscarriage. There are blogs or books that you can read. Like when I was in the hospital and I had a miscarriage with my, in my second trimester, because they had to initiate labor for the baby to get delivered. And then they gave us a care package and it had a book on, miscarriages. That helped me process my emotions as I was reading other people's stories. I did not feel alone. Or let's say listening to YouTube stories of other people for a short period. If this is not for 10 months or something, this is just for a short season to hear other people's stories oh, I'm not alone. If it's a marriage, or if you have a spouse that, betrayed you, or, you lost a really important friend, or you lost a parent that meant a lot to you, hearing other people's stories can be very, very healing. And you cry with them, and it also helps you process emotions. Again, all of this takes time. Talking about it, journaling about it, crying about it, moving your body, listening to music, hearing other people's stories. All of this takes time. I know. And the last one, again, encompasses it all. Create space. Create margin. Cut out anything extra and allow yourself to rest, especially if you're going through something really challenging. Let's say you found out that your husband was unfaithful or addicted to pornography. That is really, really hard. Let's say you just lost a parent. That is really, really, really hard. Okay? Create space in your margin. Say anything, no to anything extra. This is a season where you pause Bible studies, where if you're leading one, not if you're attending one, but if you're leading, but maybe if attending one feels too overwhelming, you pause that. Maybe this is a season where you are not on the committee of bringing meal trains to other people. This is a season where you are accepting other people's to come and serve you and support you. If you are grieving, this is not the season where you have your kids and 5 different activities. Maybe you even pause things for a month or 2 to allow yourself to grieve. And honestly, I'm just thinking of Erica Kirk. People keep saying she is so strong, and she is. She needs time to grieve. I feel sad that part of me is I'm glad that she's taking on his role in the company, the CEO, but it's a lot of responsibility. I saw her come on an episode, a podcast that they released last week of her coming on for a little bit. And my first thought was I hope the people in Turning Point who work for Charlie Kirk, they allow her some space to be present with her kids and grieve the loss without putting anything extra on her. I hope they recognize that and she can go to therapy and get the support that she needs in this season. Because what happens if you just keep powering through, you push through, you stuff it down, you get to burnout. And you get to a point where your body's I cannot do this no more. And you get so emotional. You will have mental and emotional breakdowns for the smallest things because you're constantly pushing past your capacity. So let's have some reflection questions before I close this podcast episode. Think of a season of grief. Maybe it's recent, maybe it's something that happened years ago. How did you handle it emotionally? If you had kids at that time, did you notice that you were taking out your emotions on your kids? Or did you take out that pain on your family members? One of the things that can be really helpful for you is to write a letter of compassion and forgiveness to yourself. Because sometimes we beat ourselves up for being angry, reactive, harsh with our family. But if we dive deeper a little bit, we're like, oh, this is why. I get it. I was grieving in that season. I was grieving the loss of a miscarriage. That is why I was so emotional with my kids. That is why I reacted in anger. What if you write a letter to yourself of compassion? I see you. I see how hard things are for you. And that you're having all these emotions. You're trying to hold it together. You're trying to stay so strong for your family. And inside you're falling apart. And you write a letter to yourself, you can cry. You can ask for help. You can take the time that you need to process. So I want to ask you, how can you support yourself the next time you are grieving or going through a grieving season? Because you will. You're either going to grieve a loss of a parent, a friend, a sibling, a loss of a job, loss of health. You're going to grieve. One of the grieving seasons that my uncle had, so he was in his early 30s and now he's in his probably closer to 50. But when he was in his early 30s, he was on a cherry tree in Ukraine picking cherries, and he had a bucket wrapped around his neck on a cloth or something like that. And so he was talking on his phone and trying to collect cherries in the bucket, and somehow he lost his balance and the bucket pulled him down and he fell off the tree. He broke both of his wrists and he broke his spine and he got paralyzed. That was very hard. Nobody expects that to happen to them. He went through a grieving season, and that is normal to go through a grieving season. Grieving season goes like this. You are in shock of what happened. Then you are going through denial. Okay. Then you're going through bargaining. Well, if I did this, maybe this wouldn't happen. If I did this, then this wouldn't happen. You wish you could go back, and you're bargaining and you're kind of blaming yourself for what happened. Then you are hitting depression. You are getting depressed from what happened. If you get super sad and depressed, then you're hitting anger. You get angry about the circumstance, maybe at yourself, maybe at the other person, or just the circumstance. And then there's acceptance. Grieving is a cycle. It's not just oh, we're just going to grieve. We're going to take a day. We're going to grieve. It takes time. Grieving takes time. So give yourself grace. So let me close with this. Grief does not mean that God is far away. He is closest to those that are brokenhearted. He is close to you. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit." Jesus is near you, my friend. Crying and praying to the Lord. It is so needed in this season. Grief is heavy, but with God and support, you do not have to carry it alone. And if you are grieving right now, please don't isolate. Please share with somebody. Reach out to a friend, a church mentor, a counselor. Reach out to somebody if you're going through a grieving season. So you're not taking out all those hard emotions on your family members. So grieving is a lesson that I do teach in my coaching program, because even if the mama who's in my coaching program is not grieving yet, she will grieve at some point, and she needs to learn how to process and release emotions in a healthy way. I want to invite you, if you are struggling, if you are taking out so much rage and reactivity on your kids because you have unprocessed emotions that feel really, really hard and heavy for you, please ask for help. Please don't try to do this alone. Like, don't take it on your kids. They didn't deserve it. They didn't do anything wrong to get you to where you are today. Hard things happen in life. And it's important to process and release emotions in a healthy way so you're not taking them out on your family. So you're not screaming and yelling in harsh ways. That's one of the underlying roots of anger, is unprocessed emotions. And this is one of the things that I help my clients work through in my coaching program. If you feel stuck in this cycle of frustration, anger, yelling, screaming at your kids, if you've tried all the things and nothing seems to work, and you are in a place where you're like, you know what, I am ready and willing to do the work, whatever it takes. I want to break generational anger patterns. I want to stop screaming, yelling at my kids. I want to set a positive example. You don't want to wait a day longer. You're ready to start making changes today. You're 12 out of 10 ready. You have a teachable spirit. You are willing and ready to do the work. Then the next step is to book a free consultation call with me. The link is in the show notes for you to learn all about my signature 12-week coaching program that has results guaranteed. I want to support you. I want to help you create the peaceful, calm presence in the home. I want you to be able to communicate clearly what your needs are instead of lashing out frustration and anger on your family. I have had 6 mamas that joined my Calm Christian Mom coaching program in the past month, in September. And there is a spot for you. I have a few more spots available for those that are sick and tired of feeling stuck, see the value of doing this work so their kids don't have to. If you don't want to pass on generational anger to your kids, if you want to model emotional stability, if you want to be a safe presence to your kids and teach your kids how to deal with emotions in a healthy way, because we all have feelings, you can't escape them, then this coaching program is for you. I cannot wait to connect with you. The details are all in the show notes. Hey mama, do you find yourself snapping over the smallest things, like spilled milk or constant whining, then feeling horrible afterwards? If you're tired of losing your temper and you want to show up with more patience, I have something for you. It's a free training called How to Be More Patient with Your Kids so you're not screaming over spilled milk. Inside, I'll walk you through 10 simple things you can start doing today to become a calmer, more Christ-like mom, even on the hard days. To get it for free, just leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and send a screenshot to hello@emotionallyhealthylegacy.com. Or if you'd rather skip the wait, you can grab it right now for just $27. The link is in the show notes. Let's help you become the peaceful, patient mom your kids need.